What's going on, y'all? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, representing Team King of Games, and I'm going over something very interesting. This is an update on the variant of Vendreads that me and my homeboy Cool Cuz, who is actually a member of our team, went over. The new support came out in Circuit Breakers, so you could say this is post Circuit Breakers. These cards are not technically legal until it's fully released, but I did want to showcase my take on the deck and what I think it's capable of and certain ratios and props that you might want to try yourself. It's just like a really nutty deck, and I wouldn't say it's like necessary tier 0, but I would say that it's definitely a deck that can compete in this meta on a competitive level, and it might actually see some play at Dallas because the deck is mad consistent now. It has just a lot of ways to search what it needs. It has quite a bit of utility now, which the generic zombie support, it's pretty insane. I like all the support that we got for the Vendreads. The field spell made a difference, the trap made a difference, Strides made a difference, and Chimera made a huge difference. It just made the deck a different deck. So I like the Vendreads, and I love ritual decks. You guys know that rituals are my favorite, so I just wanted to have as many ritual decks in my arsenal as possible. And for the most part, I built like pretty much every ritual deck there is. But let's hop right into this main deck without further ado. So we played 3 Slayer. Slayer is still the main ritual monster even with the release of Chimera, just because he has that built-in effect. In addition to him being able to give himself an attack boost, he has that effect when he gets, I believe it's just when he's sent from the field to the graveyard. He basically mills a Vendread, then you add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand, which is pretty insane. The Vendread monster that you mill actually does make a difference because now you can mill Strides, and Strides effect would kick in immediately. You can reveal a Vendread card, then special it. He can mill Hound Horde, and then Hound Horde's effect will kick in if you discard a. It's not an immediate thing, but his effect will kick in once you discard a Vendread, and you can just summon him directly from your deck, from your graveyard to your field, and then you can activate the ritual spell, tributing the Vendread monster that you milled from him, and then you could tribute that in another monster that you have and summon him back from the graveyard, which is pretty relevant, and it comes up a lot. So once you make one, you're able to make just the same one multiple times, and you don't even have to search the other two. It's pretty insane. Even with Strides, like, if you could find a way, like if this guy dies, for example, if you you have his effect, let's say you have Hound Horde in the grave, because Hound Horde has an effect that says if this card is in the grave, you can discard a Vendread card, special summon it. So if he's already in the grave, you can use Slayer's effect when he's sent from field to grave to mill your Strides, and use Strides, reveal a Vendread, special Strides, then discard that same Vendread, special Hound Horde, and then, you know, tribute those two and one other monster to make the levels add up correctly, and then you give him double effects, which is pretty nice. I just really like him. He's still the main one, like I said, and also because Slayer is actually mentioned in the card text of the Vendread origin. That's how you can pre-prep for him. So he's still like the main piece for the entire Vendread ritual. Basically for the core of the ritual plays. You have to play 3 Slayers. I like him a lot. He does look like Spawn. His actual monster effect isn't all that, but if he lives, you know, he gets attack boosts. Then we play 1 Chimera. Chimera is a card that I'm just kind of like on the fence about playing more, because while it's good and it is consistent, once you drop one, you don't really ever want to drop another one. And then there's that thing where it's like it doesn't have anything in its card text that says it cannot be special summoned from by any other way. So you can always Mizuki it back, you can Book of Life it back. I mean, like, you can literally just, there's so many ways you can get it back. So once you drop one successfully by ritual summoning it properly, it's just like, it's there now. You can have it in rotation. So it's just like something I'm testing out at 1. It does have an extremely relevant effect. It actually doesn't activate, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because it says when a card effect is activated, that would destroy a card on the field, which is just a card on the field, which is pretty insane. You can banish a zombie monster from your graveyard and negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And if I'm not mistaken, that doesn't activate. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking of it as like a stroke. I could be wrong, though. I'm not saying that I'm right, so I'm not trying to open up the gate to an argument, but yeah, it's a pretty relevant effect because it protects from anything being destroyed. It's like almost like Decode Talker, but a bit more insane. It's just really strong. And then if he's tributed or banished, he has like this boo-boo effect that makes your opponent's monsters do 500 attack and defense. It could be relevant, but won't really come up too much. But we play the 4 Vendread ritual monsters. You cannot pre-prep for this card. And then for the rest of the Vendreads, I play 2 of each. I play 2 Revenants, 2 Hound Hordes, and also 2 strides. Stride is actually one of my new favorites, not because of the effect that he gives to the Slayer, but just because he's one of the easiest ones to get on the field. Like there's actually an insane combo. If you have him with your Vendread Knights, you can discard him with Vendread Knights, search for a Vendread, then reveal that, and you can special summon him to the graveyard because it's an if effect and not a win. It won't miss timing, so you can still activate it as a separate chain after the resolution of Vendread Knights to search a Vendread monster. So it's pretty cool. And basically at that point, you could just normal summon this guy or this guy, the one that you search off of Knights, play your pre-prep, for example, and just tribute them off and give your Slayer as many effects as you possibly can give them. So it's pretty insane. Like, the way you set up with this deck it's really nice. Now, just having access to the Vendread Knights, I think out of all the support that this deck got, this really just took the deck to a whole new tier. It really broke the archetype. And the trap, of course, that ritual summons, that just breaks the mechanics of rituals. You guys have no idea how hyped I was to see that trap. I'm like, you can ritual summon with traps now? Where they do that at, fam? I'm like, hype, dude. Like, this is insane. This deck is just stupid now. But like I said, we just play 2 of each of the Vendreads. They break if you play 3, and then it comes up more than once every single one of these comes up more than once, and the problem is once you use them, you banish them. And yes, you can get it back off of Reunion, but Reunion's not searchable in any way, shape, or form. So you just kind of have to play 2 of each at the offset chance that they come up multiple times, which they really do. And I find this lineup to be perfect for me. It's just comfortable for my playstyle. You, personally, like when you build your Vendread deck, you can just run however many you want. Honestly, I'm not telling you what you should and shouldn't do with your deck. I'm just showcasing what I do with mine. And that's pretty much it for the Vendread stuff. And then the generic zombie support is 3 Solitaires, 3 Unizombies, and 3 Mizukis. This is just something that every single zombie deck should be playing in their lineup. 3, 3, and 3. There's nothing that you can cut for this particular lineup. These are just an engine in their self. Even without the Vendreads, this is an engine this is your Omega engine. And Omega is an engine all in his self because he returns everything that you banish back. And he never dies. He just continues to put himself back into the extra deck. It's just insane. Omega is just really an amazing card. It is, and this enables you to make pretty much a lot of Omegas, like infinite Omegas, you can say, because as long as you have access to Omega, you have access to the Mizuki. As long as you have access to Mizuki, you have access to Unizombie, and Unizombie makes Omega, and so on and so forth. There hasn't been really any like super busted openings where I can go into double Omega, but it could come up if you're playing of course, if you're playing Book of Life going second, you can resolve this going second. Or if your opponent has a hand trap, you can Book of Life. But pretty much, this is your Omega engine. It does make just basically any generic rank 8 synchros or just rank 4s if you want. But I mainly just go into the Omega because I feel like it's just the most important card for the utility that it provides for this deck. And then the spicy 1-ups are 1 Guzuki and 1 Spectral Sword. These are cards that I don't want to see too much, but they're very clutch. The interactions that they give you in the middle of your duel. Gozuki is pretty much anything you want him to be. Although he's amazing, there's so many normal summons in this deck that he tends to be irrelevant when you open up with multiples, or even when you just open up with him too early in the game. I actually wanted to play this card at 2 for the longest, and it ended up just being a 1-up because of all the space that I had to make for the new Vendread support. And the Spectral Sword is actually insane. You can dump this off of Unizombie. You can actually dump it off of your Foolish. You can pitch it off of Vendread Knights. You can pitch it off of I already said Unizombie. You can pitch it off of Gozuki. There's just like so many ways to get into your grave. Once it's in your grave, its effect is insane. It comes up all the time because you'll banish it. You'll synchro. Your Omega will already return in your main monster zone. So you can use Omega to just loop this and have never-ending synchro plays every single turn. And your Omega won't clog up your extra monster zone. And this deck does play the links. So it's pretty insane. Like you could go ham. Once this deck gets a setup, it makes some pretty nutty combos. And I like the way that it kind of just takes the link mechanic to a further degree because it doesn't even need links, but it just so happened to be able to make links consistently. Like if I had multiple firewalls, I'd be playing multiple firewalls because this deck actually can make them. It's pretty explosive once it gets going. Then we play for the spells. 3 of pretty much the best spell in my deck. In my personal opinion, this is the best spell in my entire deck. 3 Vendread Knights. It is insane. You can discard 1 card, which is just any card, and you add 1 Vendread monster from your deck to your hand. That's a hard once per turn. So if you open up with multiples, you can't really do it twice. Doesn't matter, you play 3 because you need to see it. And also its other effect is when a Vendread monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can banish one Vendread monster from your graveyard, and then it can attack again. That is actually insane in tandem with your Stride, because Stride gives the ritual monster the effect that I think it's after damage calculation. Yes, so if it battles a monster after damage calculation, you draw a card and discard a card. So it lets you draw 2 cards, and you can exchange stuff like Mizuki's, Spectral Swords, Gozuki's, stuff that you want engraved. You can exchange that for fresh cards in hand, or even pitching your Vendreads so that you can get them engraved and use their effects to revive themselves from the grave. It's just, this sets up for a lot of combos. I love the Vendread Knights. I'm like still figuring out all these crazy combos as I play the deck and play test it. Like, so much more stuff comes up, but it's like, man, the deck is so skillful, dude. It just, there's so much that it can do now. Like, oh my god, I'm so happy about the new support. And in tandem with that, we actually play just 2 Optimus Prime and not 3, simply because our field spell is hard once per turn. And although I am desperate to see it, I'm not desperate enough to open up with brick hands. So I find that 2 is just perfect to search out the 3 Knights. If it was like 1 extra terraforming, I feel like the brick hands it would give me, the potential to draw it 1 extra time, would not be worth it at the offset chance that I can draw either 1 of this in a terraforming or like 2 of it and a terraforming. So we're basically playing 5 Vendread Knights. And then for the preps, my favorite spell in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Pre-Preparation of Rites. And I called this, I knew it would come off the ban list, but I expected 3 preps. But I'm happy with 2 nonetheless. This is how you can search your Chimera if you're not using Knights. This is another reason. Knights is a whole nother reason why I'm actually not playing Manju in my list. Even though you can't search Vendread Origin, you play 3 of it, and you have pre-prep to search it. So you play 6 copies. You're using this now to search for your Slayer if you don't have Slayer off of pre-prep. And if you do have Slayer, you actually use this to search for the Vendread pieces that you need to give him the effects that you want to give him depending on the matchup. Like, I think the most relevant effect, although some could argue with me, is the effect that allows you to banish spells and traps. Because they do target, so sometimes it might not come up where the banishing special summon monsters, because Decode Talker is kind of a thing. Certain monsters protect themselves from being targeted, and then the last resort in the Spiral matchup, the monster can't be targeted. So like, I feel that the banishing spells and traps effect, that actually comes from, I think it's Hound Horde and not Revenants. Yeah, it's Hound Horde. Hound Horde's effect is the most relevant in my personal opinion. I'm just saying my opinion. He's one of the best effects you want to give to your Slayer, because it basically lets you banish your opponent's back rows, interrupting Draco players, even Spiral players, because if you banish their last resort, if they only play 1, they lose it completely. It's just really, really strong, and the fact that it doesn't destroy is insane. But you can give them whatever effects you want. But this definitely just helps you to search for the pieces that you need to make the Slayer the right way. The certain matchup you're playing, that's going to determine how you want to make your Slayer. And for even more consistency and draw power, in addition to all these searches, we play 3 Allures and 2 Pot of Desires, because I want to see everything. I want to see everything. So you play the 5 Vendread Knights, you play the 5 preps, and then you play the 5 cards for draw power. So you play 10 search spells and 5 draw spells, which I find to be perfect. It's 15 insane powerful cards that you can open up with, in addition to having all of the zombie engine, the Shiranui, Solitaire, the Unizombie, the Mizuki's, Gozuki. The deck's mad consistent, bro. I'm not even lying to you. I like it a lot. And then we're playing, and also another thing is Desires doesn't hurt too much because you're playing Omegas, infinite Omegas. If you banish a card that's extremely relevant, you can use Omega to put it back. So Desires doesn't actually hurt the list. I like it. And everything's at 3. You're playing 3 Revendread Origin. Until we get a new ritual spell, you have to maximize on this to summon your Chimeras, to summon your Slayers. It does come up when you banish this to save your Slayer from strike, for example, because they'll try to strike his effect, and even though it'll stop his effect from banishing, he'll still stay on the field. And you just Omega it back, and then now he just, so long as you have Omega and you have Slayer in the field, you could just keep putting this back and Slayer just doesn't die. They have to get over it without destroying it. And then 1 Book of Life. So everything that I'm dropping here are solely extenders and not necessarily mandatory combo pieces. So Book of Life, Foolish, and Barrier from a Different Dimension. I actually have 2, but I decided to play 1 of this list. It was coming up, but there's so many other cards. Like, I would have to cut, like, either a Pot, Book of Life. I would have to cut, like, one of my one-of techs, like Gozuki or Spectral, because I want to play 2 of each of the Vendread monsters, and hands down, you have to play 3 Unizombie, 3 Solitaire, and 3 Mizuki, in my opinion. And I can't really cut anything else. So I was just like, you know what, instead of cutting stuff to play 2 of this, I'm just going to use this acting as an extender and also a follow-up play, simultaneously being a semi-recovery play. Because you could just put everything back, like all 3 of your Mizukis. Then I also took into consideration that I have infinite Omegas. Infinite Omegas. And then you also play this bad boy right here. 2 Vendread Origins. Vendread Reunion. I wanted to play 3 because it's not searchable. But the problem is that you have spells that actually ritual summon. You have pre-preps to search it. So you're going to be ritual summoning your Vendread Slayers the normal way a lot of the times. And this trap just kind of comes up to make the most powerful Slayer you possibly can make. But when you play that 3, you'll draw it. When you either can no longer ritual summon for the duel, or you already have the spell way to ritual summon. And it's like you have to choose which one you want to do. So this just comes up similar to the last 3 spells that I showed you as kind of an extender / recovery play. But this also can be a blowout card. Like this card tends to be very, very sacky when you resolve it. Because if you have like, when you burn through your Vendread, the baby ones, you can literally summon back Streaks. You can summon back, what's his name, Revenant, and you can summon back Hound Horde. In face down defense, which is pretty insane, which protects him from certain traps. And then immediately after that resolves, you ritual summon. You have to be able to ritual summon to activate this trap, but you play a ritual deck. So you play this, you'll make your Slayer basically a Trident on steroids. He's banishing monsters, special summon monsters, of course, and back rows, and whenever he battles, you get to just deck in, which is insane. That's like a really, really powerful Slayer. In addition to that, if he dies, he'll literally mill a Vendread monster and search the ritual spell. That Vendread monster will hit the field, you'll play the spell, and then just drop another Slayer. The deck, like I said, it's just mad consistent. It's really tough to beat. It's zombies, bro. And happy Halloween, by the way, y'all. This is definitely like a Halloween themed deck. So that sums up the main deck. No, it is not 40 cards, and no, I couldn't find a way to play that 40. There's too many relevant cards. I could cut Desires from the list and, you know, make it 2 less, but I was like, Desires is too important. And since I'm playing more than 40 cards, Desires is pretty much, it's a lot more relevant than it would be in a 40 card deck. Extra deck is just 1 Firewall because I only have 1 Decode, 1 Gaia Saber, and 1 Proxy Dragon for the links. One of the simplest combos for this deck is to just go Firewall, Proxy, and then if you're able to use your Burial, for example, to put the 3 Mizukis back, you can basically just go right into either Gaia Saber or Decode Talker if you just want to have the effect just to protect your monsters from being targeted. But for the most part, you're going to go Gaia Saber at that point just so that you can have the link zones. In addition to that, you have a link 3, which is pretty relevant because you can sack it off at any time you want for the Decode Talker just to protect your cards from being targeted, which is pretty insane. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think that he can sack off the monster that your opponent has that he points to. If you can't, then really Decode Talker wouldn't be relevant in that combo where you would make the Firewall and Proxy. It would definitely, like, it would be a different story at that point. It'd probably have to be Firewall and then Gaia Saber and then Proxy Dragon. But you still want to play Decode Talker in your list simply because he has the effect that protects your cards from being tributed. If I'm not mistaken, it just says any card, yeah. It's whenever a card effect that targets a card you control, you can negate it. You contribute 1 monster this card points to, negate the activation, and destroy it. And if I'm not mistaken, because it says a card or effect, it can stop the True Draco traps, which is pretty relevant. So you kind of have to play Decode Talker. He, like, people say he's bad, but he's kind of low-key broken. And for the synchros, I play 1 of each Shiranui synchro. They all come up. They're all insane. Like, I can't really measure each one to be better than one another. They're all just like so broken depending on the time you drop them. I like just playing them all at one because once you properly synchro summon for them, they're Mizuki fodder. And obviously, like I said about the deck, you're obviously playing 3 Omega. Omega is the best card in your extra deck. He's your go-to staple. This card should have been a zombie because he's the best in zombies. There's no other deck that abuses this card like zombies do. 3 Cypher Lord Omegas, 1 Black Rose because it comes up. You play Unizombie and sometimes you don't have to do the mill effect to basically increase his level. You can just normal him next to a level 4 and just sack for Black Rose and then use Mizuki and extend your plays from that point. And you can still ritual summon. It's pretty nice. For XYZs, the Utopia package, Kergorgon, and Tornado Dragon. It was like, for this list, I was thinking about cutting one of my link monsters. Like, I'm keeping Proxy, so I was like, I could cut Gaia or Decode, or I can cut the Black Rose for the Abyss Dweller. Because I feel like these rank 4s are absolutely staples. They're absolutely mandatory. The only other rank 4 that I thought was mandatory was Abyss Dweller. So I'm still on the fence about what I want to cut to fit the Abyss Dweller into this list. But thank you guys so much for watching the deck profile. This is my take on Vendread for the time being. I'm still learning the deck, but I have came up with quite a few combos that I'm really enjoying. The deck is very fast paced. It's explosive. I like the mad consistency in it. You guys know how much I love rituals, and this is also fulfilling a deck request because many of people asked to see Vendreads from me. The first build that we did was actually me and my teammate Cool Cuz, but I wanted to show you guys, you know, my take on the deck. Because I build ritual decks different from most people would, especially with the experience that I have with rituals. But thank you guys again. Y'all make good choices. Be safe. Don't hurt your brain cells. God bless you. And thank you so much for supporting my team. Y'all stay tuned for future content, and we appreciate you. Peace.